Hi, I'm Kristen Griego with Griego Mouthpieces, and today I'm joined by Craig Mulcahy. For those of you that don't know, Craig Mulcahy is the principal trombonist of the National Symphony Orchestra in Washington, D.C. So thanks for being here.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
So, Craig, you've been playing Griego Mouthpieces for how long now?
I had to think 19 years.
19 years. Now, I remember when I first started working with you, I think it was before.
Actually, it might have been, no, I think it was while I was still in the Opera House Orchestra at the Kennedy Center.
Right.
So I think it was maybe 2001 or 2.
And at that point, was it a 4-deco or New York?
It was a 4-deco. Deco was my first Griego mouthpiece, and then eventually I switched to the New York 4.
And that was on an axial flow valve.
That's right.
Trombone, which that's the deco blank I designed for that horn, and it really centers it. Even though it's a little heavier mass, it really centers it and allows.
Yeah, I loved that one. It was fantastic. And
then from there, when you won the job at National, you then, as a gift, you bought yourself a 396, if I remember right.
I think so.
Edwards. And then at that point, is that when you switched over to the Artist Series?
I think so, because it was, since I was playing second a little bit more, then I wanted something with, no, I switched over, this I don't remember.
Yeah, it was in, I can't remember either. I think you actually went to a 5E at first, and then we backed up to a 5D, where we're at now.
I think so. That actually, I think it was after I won Principal is when I switched to that, because I was on the deco for, while I was playing second/assistant. And then when I went up to lead, that's when I switched to the New York. And
they're right, the New York 4.
That's right.
And then it was like a gateway drug, and then into the Artist Series.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you're transitioning from playing a little bit more second to principal or lead, what were you looking for in color of sound, and how would you describe that to like any of us?
It's a good question. I mean, I wanted something that would project in the hall without a lot of effort. And the horn that I won the second trombone spot on with the symphony was, it was a solid second trombone horn, and it was a lot of heavy lifting to play first on that a lot. So I needed something that I could have a little bit more ease of playing and have a little bit more projection in the high range and get out into the hall a little bit more. So.
And now you're sitting next to a trumpet, and a lot of times whenever I'm out in the hall, I'm listening to the voicing between the principal trumpet and the principal trombone, and making sure that the pyramid works on both sides, and then it has to blend all the way down.
Definitely.
And so when you're listening, do you listen? You have to listen right a lot of times.
I primarily listen right, and then there's the radar is kind of always on.
Of course.
And our principal trumpet player, Billy Gerlach, he plays. He likes to switch trumpets around. He's always trying different things, and so it's kind of interesting to hear what really blends well and what doesn't blend well, and we can both tell it pretty quickly. And
in rehearsals, I'm sure, and then you figure it out, and it's like, oh, okay, yes, no, yes, no.
Yeah.
Do the trumpet players ever ask you what you think?
They will, yeah.
I'm always kind of curious about that, just from an outsider looking in. I'm always on the outside, so
could be one of those things where it's a professional courtesy. It's like, hey, you should probably see what he thinks. But yeah, no, and I'll just. He's great. I'll just give him my opinions, and he'll give them back, and we have a great working relationship. So that like the other day I was playing a different alto trombone. He's like, oh yeah, I really like that horn.
And it's interesting because again, from the outside looking in, I work with other sections, and a lot of times the principal trombone, they'll have a great relationship with the trumpet players as well, because they'll get feedback. Whenever I was in Boston, the entire trumpet section was listening to the instrument choices for the trombones and giving feedback. To the trombone players, and vice versa. It was really fun to do.
Absolutely.
So, playing principal, you try and get a little bit more color to be on top of the section. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. Color, and then just the immediacy of sound, so it's predictable. You can hear it laterally, and
so. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but I want people to hear different players and how they approach it. Do you Mouthpiece Buzz?
I do sometimes. I used to do it a lot, as in a lot, like maybe 5 minutes a day. And now I find that when I have any kind of inefficiency in my playing, if it's articulation or if maybe the pitch doesn't quite lock in right away, then I will buzz, and not for very long, but it fixes things pretty quickly for me. And
How so? I'm just.
I think maybe, and I'm not sure because I'm not sure if the air, if it's over vibrating or I'm using more air than I would in the horn because there's no resistance or not nearly as much resistance in the mouthpiece as in the trombone. Then when I put it back in there, it's back into the slide. Everything falls into place a lot more.
So you just use it as a little fresher upper, kind of, to, if something...
I mean, I can tell if my articulations aren't clear, like if there's a little bit of a burr on the front of them, then sometimes I'll just take the mouthpiece out and I'll just articulate through those. Sometimes when I first start a note, if the pitch isn't, if it kind of sags and then gets into it, then it's like some sort of an air inefficiency. And when I buzz on the mouthpiece, it takes care of that.
It exposes it, shows it, and then you can correct it. Do you mind showing us so we can listen a little bit to your buzz?
Yeah, sure. One thing that when I do for the buzz, I mean, I know that you're not going to get an equivalent vibration, of the air without the trombone. Like when it's all going to change, and that doesn't bother me. What I want is a steady sound on the buzz, because I found that if I can have a steady pitch on here, it doesn't matter if the pitch is actually the same pitch that's going to be on the trombone. It's not going to be the same, but it helps me actually just lock right into that much more. So then it tunes the air more than anything, just to have stable air, because if you don't have stable air, your mouthpiece is really going to expose you, because there's no forgiveness with this. Now the trombone, it focuses everything, but if you can get it to be stable on here, it's so much easier to be stable in the trombone.
Absolutely.
So sometimes, sorry, there's dog air floating around here.
Lulu was coming up to us a little earlier, so.
Which I love dogs. So. A lot of times, most of the time when I buzz, I don't use a tongue for articulation unless I'm specifically going for cleaning up attacks. So I just try to think of a breath as sort of a cyclical motion. I don't want to stop the air at all, so I just think, and then I'll do an air attack on there. And I try to make sure I avoid a scoop like this, which I always used to do, and then it just occurred to me, I probably don't need that, and it might be better if I would just have a straight pitch. And if I could replicate that, it was so much easier to have a steady sound on the trombone.
Yeah, and clean front and development really fast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it becomes more of this, like we've talked about it, driving around more than this.
Wah. Yeah, exactly.
Wah. It's
yeah, on or off. And it's not that you want that compression of the tongue to really just make the note explode. I just want that air just to be this. I picture it as. I've mentioned this to my students before, like a freight train moving into like a freight yard. It's going 5 miles an hour or whatever. I want the air to be able to push whatever's in its way just without any kind of stopping, any interruption at all. I want that air to be constant. And so then the buzzing is sometimes what I do for that. I just want that air to be nonstop, just blowing through without any interruption at all.
Now you don't cover the end of the mouthpiece at all.
No.
I don't either, and I don't know why, but whenever I see people do that, I actually prefer that they take it away.
Yeah.
And some people are like, well, it doesn't replicate the instrument, but that's not what I'm doing it for.
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to get things the way I picture them in my head.
Yeah.
And whenever that correlates for whatever reason, then it works.
Right. I always figured if I can get a steady sound on here, it's going to be a lot easier to get a steady sound on the trombone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now, excuse me, now you're teaching privately. You teach private lessons.
I do.
So how do people reach you to get lessons?
Several different ways. I mean, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I have a website that people contact me. Yeah, so CraigMulcahy.com. It's my unupdated website, but the contact information is still there. Facebook is pretty easy, just the Facebook Messenger, Instagram.
So you're in Washington, D.C. area, but you also teach online, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. So if you're interested in having lessons with Craig, you can go to Craig's website at
CraigMulcahy.com.
And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. We'll try and get to those. So thanks for being here, Craig.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.